Allison Pearson being given lots of attention. She's a Daily Telegraph columnist, if you didn't know that. But she's been getting lots of attention because the police came round to talk to her about a tweet that she'd written. And this is the Daily Telegraph's coverage of her story. Police drop investigation into Allison Pearson over tweet. Force ditches inquiry after facing criticism for appalling attack on free speech. So they're bemoaning the attacks on free speech. But then if we look at this story, this is 2 days earlier from the Telegraph. 2 days earlier, the NHS neurologist freely spouting anti-Semitic hate online. Dr Rehiana Ali called the Hamas leader a legend, blah, 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 you know, whatever they want to make up. You know, I can't really get over the hypocrisy of it. But Dr Rehiana Ali is on the call to talk about the campaign against her, the Doxxing campaign, the attempt to destroy her job, her career. And she's bravely come out to talk about this. So are you there, Dr. Rehiana?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Crispin, for inviting me. So
thank you for coming on. So this is an appalling attack on you. I mean, they twisted your words around and smeared you. I mean, we've seen this before. What's your reaction to what what's happened, and also can you tell us what you think about the hypocrisy on this as well?
Yeah, so I'm happy to. So firstly, I just want to say that I salute Huda Mori. I've had the pleasure of meeting her, and I think she's a brave woman. That statement itself might get me into trouble, because one of the tweets they complained about was I reposted something from Palestine Action. So that apparently was a no-no. Now, I was quite surprised to find myself in the Daily Telegraph, but not just the Daily Telegraph. I think at some point we should start setting up a tally, as I was saying to you, about how many lobbies we've been attacked by. I count 6 for myself at the moment, this year, in the last 9 months. So I've had the UK Lawyers for Israel and Ganasha Jew. That was in February. I then had, surprisingly, I was quite shocked by this. I had the UK Jewish Medical Association report me to the GMC. So that was the second report. I then had, and that was over my election campaign because I stood in Bradford South. And then more recently, I've had Jewish News. So Jewish News contacted me, Michelle Rosenberg, and they asked me for a statement. I was abroad. I said I would respond. They went ahead and published without waiting for a comment. And I actually didn't even know Jewish Chronicle had written a piece. The only reason I knew was because when I was searching for the Jewish News article to see what they had written about me when I returned, I found the Jewish Chronicle article. So the Jewish Chronicle was written, I think, on the 7th, the Jewish News on the 8th. And then I got contacted to top it all by the Telegraph, by a George Chesterton. Now, and he's had the audacity to publish part of my comment. Well, he's published my comment, but added something to it. So it makes it look as if I said that. You know, the Telegraph says it has, it believes in free speech, but it's been taking down comments on people, obviously writing comments on in my favor.
Yeah, I've got. I'll just show. So I'm doing you sent me one. I'll just show you this comment here. Yasmin Ali, written. Basically, this article is defamatory and deliberately an orchestrated attack with Jewish News and Jewish Chronicle, amongst other Israeli mouthpieces. Now, her comment, you told me, was actually removed, and she's been stopped from posting anything on their platform. So their free speech only goes so far.
Well, the free speech doesn't exist whatsoever. So I think that I personally see the whole Allison Pearson affair, to answer your question, as a bit of a psyop, i.e. that there's people on the other side, facing similar attacks. So there's a different standard being applied, and it's particularly over the Israel-Palestine issue. If you stand up for the fact that actually I don't believe that people should be killed, I don't believe in mass slaughter, I don't believe kids should ever be targeted, and I will stand by that, then basically you're an anti-Semite. So I've been labeled as an anti-Semite, and the defamatory, and so that the word itself has completely lost meaning. I object to the term anyway, I'll be quite honest, because the Palestinians are Semites. So on no place on earth can I possibly be an anti-Semite. I am one of the most pro-Semitic people around. The correct word, I think, is Judeophobia or anti-Jewish hatred. And what I found so offensive was that they accused me of being, their headline is "I'm a pro-terror doctor." I mean, it's defamatory. I oppose terrorism because I oppose the state of it. I oppose, the Israeli entity. Israel is a source of terrorism, and I oppose it. So actually, if anything, I'm anti-terror, right?
So,
The tweets they've picked out have been so ludicrous, and I think I need to say this because I looked at it thinking, which tweets would they have picked out, and I'm quite surprised by some of them are so ridiculous that they've picked out retweets. I said a comment of strange ... That became, apparently I became a Holocaust denier. I mean, if you believe in free speech, then you should be able to disagree with anyone, but nobody should be prevented from speaking. It cannot be one rule for one lot of people and another rule for another lot of people. It has to be applied equally across the board. So I don't like certain people, but I would defend their right to speak. And I think that has to apply, across the board, whether you like people or not. It's irrelevant. Hurty feelings shouldn't come into this. So they definitely have defamed me. So I am looking at, getting legal advice, because calling me a pro-terror doctor and calling me an anti-Semite, saying I'm unsafe to practice and I should be struck off. I mean, I refuse to back down. Everything I have tweeted has been entirely legal. It has been factual, and I have a right to tweet it.
can I just ask about your position, your job? Are you in trouble with your job? What's happening?
So in terms of the job, I was doing clinics at Sunderland, and I think people should pay note to this, that I didn't know that my access had been revoked, not for certain aspects, but I couldn't access the email. Now, the email is a secure way I would communicate with the secretaries for patient results, because you don't share data otherwise. You can't share data on other platforms. There's data protection issues. And I didn't think anything was up, but what I found was that I contacted the trust. IT couldn't understand it. And then I've learned that a guy called Lee Whitfield, who's their project manager, or he's some manager, had revoked my access because of my social media posts. And no one had contacted me for a comment. They had just simply made a decision, and they've denied people in Sunderland access to their neurologists, and they've ensured that, and since then, and this is why the patient safety comes in, I can't receive results. I can't receive results from the trust about patients I've seen. They haven't asked the patients. They've just made it, they've just come to a decision. And, I will be writing to the CEO, Ken Bremner of Sunderland, to get him to explain his position. I mean, how can he justify denying people access to a neurologist because he or his colleagues didn't like certain posts? I mean, my question to them is twofold. Why would you object to someone objecting to a genocide, to what's happening in Palestine, to a Holocaust in Palestine, as I call it, because that's what it is? Why would you object to that, number one? And why do you think, and this is what's offensive, why do you think a Jewish patient would not want to see me? I mean, what are you saying about Jewish people generally? That, i.e., that you're saying that if someone opposes a genocide, a Jewish patient wouldn't want to see me? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's actually, it would be offensive. If I was Jewish, that would be very offensive to me, would it not?
Yeah. Well, look, I have. This is an extraordinary thing to be going through, where they're taking your email away without your consent. This doxing and attempting to destroy people's careers is really outrageous, and especially what you're saying, the context of it. I'm just going to bring on someone else who's been doxed by people trying to ruin his employment as well. Ray Campbell. Are
Hello.
you there, Ray?
I am here, yes.
All right, good
Thank
to
you for
see you.
having Hi, thank you for having me on, Crispin.
No, no worries. I mean, your story is kind of similar, but it's a different way they tried to approach getting you in trouble. I mean, not through the media. They wrote a letter. This is a letter which sent from our friends, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. Um, it's writing to your employer with someone who's calling themselves the Director of Investigations and Enforcement. We've seen this when they tried to stop the film that Jeremy Corbyn. They write this. They have these titles that they make up for themselves. But anyway, they tried to get you in trouble with your employer, reporting on your social media posts, and you managed to pinpoint these two posts. Um, two, I think these were two of the main ones. Anyway, captured by Nasser Jew. Can you tell us what's happened with this? I mean, you had two jobs, and they tried to approach both the employers. You're a lecturer, and they tried to destroy you in both jobs.
Yes, that's correct. The first I heard about it was last July when I was on my way to Orkney to see my family, and I got a phone call from one of my employers, the HR department of one of my employers, who said, I have a very serious matter to discuss with you. I said, well, look, can you put it in an email? He said, no, we really need to talk about this. I said, well, look, I'm on my way to the airport. So you're going to have to email me. Anyway, that's what he did. And when I received the email, there was a letter attached to it from Nasser Jew that made all sorts of allegations against me and presented what they described as evidence. And now, when I read their evidence, my first reaction was to laugh because I just thought, well, this is absurd. If one of my students had submitted anything like that as evidence for one of their essays, I would have said, well, look, you're going to have to go away and find something better than this. It pretty much amounted to the kind of thing that, say, a 7 or 8 year old might say to their teacher, Miss, he's pulling faces at me. That was that was their evidence. Okay, so the second tweet, where I say that they're hoping to achieve what the National Front, the British movement, and the BNP failed to do, is to start a race war. Well, what they did is they neglected to include the amendment underneath it, which said, it seems like. So I added some conditionality to it. And yeah, the investigating officer at my other place of work, not Royal Holloway, seized on that. And well, I think he seemed to think that I would just collapse under questioning, which I didn't do. But he actually treated me as though I was already guilty. Whereas with Royal Holloway, I attended an investigation meeting, and a couple of months later, they completely dismissed the case. Whereas my unnamed employer decided to take it all the way to a disciplinary hearing against advice.
And what happened there?
Well, I attended the disciplinary hearing. I produced a 50-page document in which I um, addressed every single accusation using evidence to refute their accusations. So I took this document with me and I read out most of it. The actual hearing, I think, lasted something along the lines of 2 hours. And in the end, they had to relent. So they said that there was no case to answer. But they took me through that process. So for 8 months, I had this hanging over me.
Wow. And how would you say you felt during that 8 months?
Well, I swung between anger and a kind of resolve. I knew that I'd have to fight these people, and I was determined to win, which I did in the end.
Right. Well, I mean that the fact went through that is great, and also coming on this show to talk about it, because there's other people who are facing the same kind of treatment, and obviously Dr. Rehiana has described that, and obviously Dr. Rehiana, fantastic for you to come on and speak to